Hi, I'm Jeff, and welcome to another one of my videos where I give you the opportunity to test your comic book grading skills up against actual results from CGC. This is the 8th and final part in my 8-part series focusing on this 25-book modern submission that I just got back from CGC. This submission has featured X-Men books of all kinds that have been released sometimes decades apart. And I am a huge X-Men fan. So I've been very, very excited to unbox these books and share them all with you. Now, just so you know, these books were submitted by me to CGC back in May of 2021. It is now the end of July 2022. So it took about a year and 2 months for these books to get back to me. And that's a long time, but part of the reason it took so long was because I did have them pressed at CCS, and CCS takes a while. They're backed up and their process takes a lot slower than grading. So it really does slow down the return process. And I've had to be very, very patient, and I understood with the situation, but I really wanted these books back, and I'm very happy now to have them back in my possession and to share them with all of you. All right, so the purpose of this video is it's a test your comic book grading skills video. What I do is I show you video that I made of these books when they were raw, before I sent them off to CGC. We are going to assess them for any kind of damage, any kind of flaws, anything that might impact the grade negatively. Then we are going to give our best guess as to what we think the grade might be. Once we've done that, we're going to pull the last 4 books out of this box, and we're going to take a look at the results from CGC and see how we did. If I am way off from the grade, we'll do a little bit of a post-grading analysis. See if we can't work backwards from the grade we got from CGC and figure out why CGC gave the book the grade that it did. All right, I'm really happy to see the last 4 books in this submission. So without further ado, let's take a look at these 4 books when they were raw. First up, we have X-Men 141. This is the first part of the classic Days of Future Past story. So good. Now, this is a pretty good looking book at first glance, but not perfect. You'll see there's some damage there along the edge. It almost looks like the ink was smeared or something like that, but that's damaged. That corner looks a little angry, possibly blunted. These books will be getting cleaned and pressed at CCS, so that corner might get helped a lot by the press. I don't think it will disappear whatever issues are there, but I think it'll be helped by the press significantly. The rest of this book looks actually pretty good. I don't see much to complain about. There appears to be some dirt and stuff in the white section of the poster there. That can be cleaned. I don't know if they'll go after it, but it can be cleaned. But all in all, this is a well-presenting copy of this book. Definitely above 9.0 in my first impression here. The back, on first glance, looks a lot worse. Here we have some dirt that'll clean up. Now that looks like dirt that could clean up. I hope that here at the bottom will clean up. But there's a decent amount of damage here on the back. Some of it will clean up and be downplayed once the cleaning up has happened, but there are definitely some stresses there that of some decent length and significance. So I'm going to have to be a little bit rough on this book, and I think it's going to get a 9.0. Next up, we have The Uncanny X-Men 142. Yes, this is the first book where The Uncanny became an official part of the title of this book. You'll see immediately there are flaws in the box there. It looks like there's a little bit of some kind of, there's a line that goes top to bottom there. I think that's a printing defect and actually not damaged. but it's kind of hard to tell, but there is definitely damage here along the spine. Some color-breaking spine ticks. Yeah, the one that goes perpendicular to the spine there, it looks like printing damage. It doesn't look like damage after the fact, but I can't say for sure. So to protect myself, and in addition to stuff that's going through the X-Men title, it almost looks like from rollers or printing or something, but I'm going to be pessimistic and protect myself and attribute that to something that is going to hurt the grade. That bottom right-hand corner, however, that's damage all day, definitely going to hurt the grade. This book has issues, no doubt. I have a hard time thinking that this book is going to get into the 9.0 and above range. The back of this book, there's definitely some tanning along the outer edge there. It's not quite as white. It almost looks like a shadow, but I don't think it is. Maybe slightly. Boy, that's hard to tell. But there's obviously a lot of problems with this book, and many of them here on the back will get fixed by the clean and press, but not disappeared. This book is not as good as issue 141, so I'm going to give it an 8.5. Next up, we have X-Men Annual 14. This book. Is it the first cameo appearance of Gambit? Is it the first full appearance of Gambit? Hotly debated. I'll talk about that more later in this video. But right now, let's just look at the condition of this book. And this book looks fantastic. I'll mention this later, but I'll mention it now. I bought this book brand new when it first came out, and it looks pretty good. There might be a little bit of a pinch along the spine there where the H's and the along the border of the spine, and that corner is less than ideal, but I don't think either of those things are going to take this out of the 9.8 category. Now, I will tell you, I did read this book when I was a kid, but even when I was a kid, and even to this day, when I read these type of square-bound books, I am so careful not to open the book too much so that it cracks the spine on these square-bound books. I barely open them. Sometimes when the text goes all the way in toward the center where the spine is of the page, center end of the page where the spine is, I can barely see the words because I don't open up the book. Sometimes I have to slide my littlest finger in there just to open it up slightly so that I can even read what's inside the book. I'm a maniac. But I've always tried to protect the condition of these books, and it looks like I did a pretty good job with this one, considering I've had it for 30 years. It looks completely unread. You can see in the spine there's no indication of that ever having been folded over. So this is a really nice book. I don't see any problems with it that would take it out of a 9.8. And finally, the last book in the group is The Uncanny X-Men issue 244, the first appearance of Jubilee, another book that I bought brand new off the rack when I was a kid. It looks like I've done a decent job taking care of it, but not a perfect job. There is a nice color-breaking flaw right there. Possibly two small ones coming off of the staple there. A little bit of a miswrap there. That's just the advertisement on the back. Possibly a small color-breaking spine tick coming off of the top area of that staple right there. So a handful of small color-breaking spine ticks. Other than that, I think this book looks really, really great. That edge looks good. That corner looks good. This edge looks good. That white dot in the shadow there, I think, is a printing thing with all the other white dots in the shadows there. The bottom edge looks good. Looks like a solidly decent copy of the book to me. Let's see the back here. Now, this ad, I've seen a lot of books basically just like be taken completely out of the running to get graded because this ad shows damage so clearly. And at first glance, I'm really not seeing much by way of damage. Boy, and the spine looks really, really good here on the back. There's a little color-breaking spine tick there at the top. But boy, man, yes, there are a handful of color-breaking spine ticks, but they're really, really small. I hope that it's going to get a 9.6. All right, so now you've had the opportunity to assess these books when they were raw. You have given your best guess as to what you think the grade is. I have told you my best guess as to what I think the grade is. In fact, they're all written down here on this piece of paper that I put together over a year ago. Now we are going to find out what the results are from CGC. Now, as I've mentioned before, I've been pulling out of this book blind. I haven't known what the books are, but I do know what the books are today, and there's some good ones in there. So this is really, really exciting to me to get to share these with you. So let's go ahead and dig in and take a look at the first of 4 books we're going to be talking about in this video. Alrighty. Looking at it face down. I almost accidentally saw the grade there. I didn't though. Okay, so face down, grades are covered up on both sides. This book is, oh yeah, one of the greatest covers of all time, most homaged books ever, X-Men 141. What a fantastic story from Chris Claremont. I'm such a fan of his, he's so great. What a wonderful book. Okay, so this is a banger. I thought that this book would get a 9.0, okay? Now, as long as it gets a 9.0 or happier, or 9.0 or higher, I'm happy. Let's just hope it's not below that. Let me show you the results. Okay, how'd I do? Did I get 9.0 or better? 9.2. Okay, that's great. That's really, really great. Generally in these videos, I haven't been keeping score, but I think probably more times than not, I have been wrong by being 1 grade increment below the final result from CGC. And that is perfectly fine by me. I've mentioned this in a lot of the videos, so forgive me for the repeated information, but I think it's important to mention. What I do when I submit to CGC is I factor in what the book cost me raw, how much it's going to cost to get graded at CGC, pressed at CCS, the shipping, all associated costs. And I want to make sure that my investment, my total cost on the book is going to be less than the final value of the book after it's been graded. And that final value is determined by the grade. So it's important to try to be as accurate as possible when it comes to grading your books to protect your investment. If anything, be a little bit harsh when you're putting together your math to see if it's worth it to submit a book to CGC for grading. And that's what I was with this submission. I was a little bit harsh. So it makes sense that a lot of the grades ended up being just a little bit higher than what my guess was. But this is a great book to have in a 9.2. I'm really, really happy about this. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next book. Once again, pulling it out face down, pulling off the bag, covering the grades. I'm guessing it's going to be X-Men 142. Let's see. Yes, it is indeed. X-Men 142, Part 2 of the Days of Future Past storyline. So good, so good. I thought that this book would get an 8.5. Now, I mentioned in another video when I talked about X-Men 130 that I thought 8.5 was the lowest grades that I expected from this. That was wrong. At one point I forgot about the 8.0 X-Men 120 that I had factored in. So this is the second lowest grades that I expected from this group. Let's just hope that it's not the second lowest grades in the results category. All right, enough talking. Let's show you the results. So I thought it was going to be an 8.5, like I mentioned. Let's see, it'd be nice if it matched that other 9.2 for the first part. Let's see, what did I get? A 9.2! Nice, that's great, that's great. So I was 2 grade increments off. I don't love being 2 grade increments off. I want to either nail it or be 1 grade increment off, but 2 grade increments off is okay. And I am super excited because you really you really want to have these two books together, and you really want the grades to match. And so I'm really, really glad that I have these two books in matching 9.2 off-white to white pages. So that's really, that's awesome. That's awesome. Not only to be, this is one of those instances where I'm more than happy to be wrong with my guess. All right. Two more books in here. If it's going down the order the way it is, I'm going to be, oh yes, no, I can tell already. This is a book that I'm super excited about and have high hopes for. It feels a bit thicker, which means that's X-Men Annual 14. Sure is. X-Men Annual 14, the hotly debated first cameo appearance of Gambit. And of course, the story behind this is that it's not a cameo appearance. It's a full appearance, but CGC calls it a cameo appearance because they give the first full appearance honors to X-Men 266, and there's a lot of confusion around this book because X-Men Annual 14 was released a week or two, I believe, before X-Men 266, but in story chronology, X-Men 266 was supposed to be released first, but there was some kind of issue with the way books were released, and this one came out before 266. And I remember as a kid reading these books and being very confused when I read this. I was like, who's this character? I don't know who it is. And then a couple weeks later, reading X-Men 266, we're like, oh, that's Gambit. He's a new character. 266 should have come out first. So there's a lot of debate kind of about like whether or not this should be the Gambit book of choice. But regardless of all of that, the market has chosen X-Men 266 as the Gambit book to have, but this is also a really nice one to have. Now, it was my guess, this book was really in great shape. I bought this new off the rack when I was a kid, and it was in great shape when I sent it in, so I really thought it should get a 9.8, and I haven't really guessed 9.8 at all. Well, very much, yeah, at all, I think, with this submission. So let's see, did I get the 9.8 I thought I was going to get? Come on, please, 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 please. Awesome. Very awesome. Exactly. The 9.8 that I expected. X-Men Annual 14 in a 9.8. Well, these thicker cases, it's a thicker book, square-bound book. Wouldn't it have been nice if it had gotten a 9.9 or a 10? But no, I'm not going to get greedy. I'm very, very happy with my 9.8 in this book because it matches my expectation. If it had come back a 9.6, that would have been a big bummer because there's little that's worse than expecting a 9.8, being a fairly conservative grader like myself and expecting a 9.8 and not getting a 9.8 because the difference in value between a 9.8 and a 9.6 can be significant. Much more significant than the difference between like a 9.6 and a 9.4. So I'm really happy that I got the 9.8 on that book. Okay, so let's hope that we keep that high, that happy high going with the final book from this submission. And that book is X-Men 244. This is the first appearance of Jubilee. This is another book that I bought myself brand new when I was a kid at the comic book store. I've kept all this time in as best a shape as I could, and now we're going to see what grade it gets. Now, it was my guess that this would get a 9.6. So let's see what the grade is. Okay. Am I going to be sad because it got lower than that or happy because it got the 9.8? That would be amazing. 9.4. Well, that's disappointing. You know, I think something that I'm kind of noticing with some of these books that that are getting a little bit of a lower grade than I expected is that I think a lot of them have a lot of minor spine ticks that don't break color. And I think I've been kind of discounting those. If you have a lot of, once again, minor, even if they're not color breaking, spine ticks along the edge factor that in, and you might be able to take those to a presser who can really fix them, but I don't even think the best presser could make these go away. So there's always going to be evidence of them. So I think that that's something that I've definitely learned through this submission, is to, you know, I thought they might forgive small, non-color breaking spine ticks, but it appears that they don't. They don't hit the grade super hard, but they also aren't being like, oh, it's non-color breaking, we're just going to ignore it. No, they don't ignore anything. But I was only one grade increment off, so I can't be too upset with the result that I got. It's a little low, so it's a little disappointing, but I can't beat myself up and say like I'm doing a bad job grading. I was pretty close, and at this grade range, grading is so subjective. I got to be pretty happy with the testing of my comic book grading skills. Well, how did you do with your comic book grading skills? Let me know down in the comments what your guesses were. And don't lie, put your real guess down there. There's no judgment here. We're all here to learn and become better graders. And let me know what your reaction was when you saw the results. In addition, if you've enjoyed this series, I've got more of this coming, so definitely subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're informed when I put out more videos. And if you like this content, likes are appreciated by me, and it tells other people, hey, I like this guy, maybe you should check him out. So I would appreciate if you pounded that like button. All right, so that's it for this video and for this series. This has been a fun adventure. Thank you all so much for going on the ride with me. And thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.